American Airlines Flight 965 from Miami to Cali, Colombia was on its descent. On the landing approach, the pilot had to select the next navigation radio fix, which was called ROZO, R-O-Z-O, which was shown by an R on the pilot's dashboard. However, the flight management system database also had another navigation fix, which was called Romeo, and the pilot pressed R. That Romeo would take the pilot to a nearby airport 150 miles away, and Rozo would actually land to where it was intended. However, that was not the case when the pilot pressed R. By default, Romeo got selected, and unfortunately, the plane crashed. All 159 people died. It was a very tragic accident. But someone thought that in the software, if we have, alphabetical order, that would make more sense rather than finding the nearest airport waypoint. This is what happens when technology that is supposed to ease your life becomes the biggest hurdle. Your experience suffers. Fear, anxiety, blunders become a routine. Anger and stress widely move in. Daily life gets disrupted. Technology reshapes how you think, feel, and act. And technology by itself doesn't care. That is when you need someone to relook at technology and shape it for positive, effective, and meaningful human experiences. I'm Sameer, and I help reshape human behavior through the design of experiences by optimizing how people interact with products, services, and systems. With over 1,000 software products designed, impacting millions of lives, and of course made billions of dollars for the businesses, users worldwide, I'm here to talk about how I reached this point. Specifically, how I became a design entrepreneur through a series of intentional and unintentional choices I made over the last 30 years. So who am I really? I'm really a optimist. I'm an optimizer. I look for faults in systems, frankly, and then I kind of design systems. Autocomplete is great when it's not flying planes, right? But that's the reason you have the "Are you sure" button. Okay. My quest for optimization in human work and understanding behavior has almost always led me to very unconventional choices, the road less traveled. The example of the airline is a classic example, a case in point in human factors that I studied at the turn of the century in the US. It is the study of human abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. These abilities are considered into design, and then the technology is designed rather than the other way around. So just like in chess, the knight is the only piece that can jump over obstacles to land on a square others can't see. This jump from what I was doing earlier to human factors had a multidisciplinary bent. I moved into a field that is a combination of psychology, design, computer science, and visual communication. I left India at that time, moved to the US, and just like all these bold decisions, they go right. No, they don't. The same thing happened here. I graduated about 21 days before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, the markets really crashed, and I had to find my way into human factors consulting. right? But I did not start always like this. But these, suddenly this particular expertise and experience that I had, it kind of looked like a luxury to the world. And I spoke about this new discipline constantly with other people, even when there was uncertainty. But this phase gave me two crucial insights. The first was human behavior under stress becomes more error prone, more emotional, more conservative. Systems must be designed with that reality in mind. And circumstances are volatile, capabilities are compounding. So if you keep on building rare, relevant skills, the world eventually comes back at you. My journey did not start with human factors or in the US, or with design as it is recognized today. It started with industrial engineering, a discipline reinforced in the post-World War II era. While many of my peers chose mechanical, computer engineering, or civil engineering, I went for industrial engineering, where I found myself working in plants or shop floors, measuring work, designing plant layouts, creating man-machine systems. Everything was about less waste, more throughput, and super efficiency. So you can imagine the paths that I chose at this point as well. There was one industrial engineer for every 5,000 mechanical engineers, right? So I remember one of my very first assignments found me counting chickens, literally. It was in a plant where chickens were brought in, dismembered and packaged. And it was a plant, trust me. There was a proper assembly line. There were machines to cull the chicken and so on and so forth. Sorry if this sounds gross, but this is a real business, right? And the task that we were given, the problem that we were given, was to determine how many chickens can be packaged in 1 hour. And we had to decide that the entire plant, what is their productivity. But there was, problem. When we talked to the supervisors always told that, hey, whenever we are in the plant, where we are in the shop floor, the output per hour is much lower than when we are not. So when we looked at what they were doing, the workers inside, they were working in freezing conditions at 15 degrees Celsius. And there was, 1 inch cold water inside. And they used to bring sharp knives and cut the chicken manually because that was the requirement. And then package it in a certain way. So when we undertook this study, we arrived at a number. I don't remember exactly how much. But I remember the insights I've carried from it. The first one was human behavior changes when it is observed, guided, or constrained by a system. And that's what the supervisors were complaining about. Whenever we are on the shop floor, the behavior changes. And then every factor in the system, tools, interfaces, rules, incentives, environment, shapes how people behave. Now, these insights were fascinating, right? And this particular area, industrial engineering, taught me that human behavior changes based on external factors. But the earlier experience, the human factors, taught me that it is based on internal factors. But when I thought I know everything about human behavior, and in this particular quest to reshape human behavior, the world threw a boogie. Fast forward to today, we live inside an information flood. Just to give you an example, we are hit with nearly 1 billion bits of information every second. To put that in perspective, that's an equivalent of 66,000 book pages, or 1,000 photographs, or a full HD movie compressed into 1 single second. The world is doing too much, right? But did you know our eyes' capability to pass along information is only about 10 million bits per second? That's a 1000x reduction. And even before thinking begins, the brain can only process 40 bits per second. Imagine a billion bits per second to 40 bits. So the real problem is not the lack of information, which information to pass along to the user or to the customer or to the person who is involved in this process. It's a brutal mismatch between how much the world gives us and how much we can process literally. This is where design truly matters. So design is not about adding features, functions, or showing more data. It is about choosing wisely which 40 bits survive. The 40 that help people understand, decide, and move forward. And therefore, good design protects attention, and good design reduces cognitive overload. We all know we are a generation today which uses multiple social media platforms, Instagram and Snapchat, and we keep on scrolling thousands of bits of information. And do you now know why it is called the attention economy? Because the attention is the product, and that's what they are trying to have. So in my quest to understand human behavior in the information age, I ended up applying all my learnings to the digital media, which is the science of user experience design. I began working on usability projects for global clients, designing for the early software that was clunky, extremely difficult, and very expensive to change. Design wasn't even considered, user experience at that time. It was just, do some software and then, come back and think about whether it works or not. It was called the field of usability. So reshaping behavior in this age takes rigor of applying what we call as a human-centered methodology. So you have to keep the human at the center, you have to know their capabilities, you have to know their limitations and strengths, and then you design the system. Moving ahead, as I was practicing user experience design, becoming a design entrepreneur fell directly onto my lap, right? Because designing for customers over time, a few things became very obvious. Products designed with user experience in mind outperformed their competition by a wide margin. Design always added disproportionate value. Most products were designed outside India, but heavily engineered in India. Tech development, testing, maintenance were done here, but not designed. That realization was not just professional, it was personal. It shaped my next major move of founding a purely design-focused company. But there were multiple challenges. There was no established demand for UX in India, and there was no supply at all, right? There were no trained designers as well. Design was seen as artistic, not scientific or strategic. So we did two things very deliberately. We went to universities abroad, hired people with the potential, and trained them rigorously in UX. We chose to work from the very beginning on complex problems for very large companies, many Fortune 500 companies, to prove that design could create measurable business outcome. At its core, our philosophy was simple. Design is the science of balancing human goals and business goals, which can be often conflicting. You cannot design only for user delight and ignore business viability at all. The real craft lies in finding that balance, project after project, system after system. Across these decades, from factories to boardrooms, from startups to global enterprises, the patterns of human behavior became clearer. One, behavior is shaped by observation and context. Number two, systems shape behavior more than intentions do. Number three, human factors matter the most, the internal part of things. And number four, in this particular information age, choice of information drives behavior. Right? So these were the top learnings that I had during my entire journey. These learnings did not remain theoretical. They became the backbone of how we build products and businesses. Today, there's a new kind of disruption. AI and automation are threatening all the straight lines of design. The predictable linear ways in which we use research, ideate, and deliver is not there anymore. The tools are getting smarter, faster, more capable. If all you do is push pixels, AI will eventually do it better. That's how it is. This is exactly where the knight's path becomes important again. Instead of moving in straight lines, we tend to jump over different pieces and start something like, let's say, AI native consulting. We are no longer designing screens, but we are thinking human experiences with AI-enabled systems. What should this interface look like is not the question anymore, but what decisions should humans and AI make? How do we make AI recommendations understandable, trustworthy, and humane? Design in this context means shaping AI behavior in a world where humans and AI agents co-create outcomes and making sure technology is used in the most effective way. We treat AI not as a black box, but as an active agent. Okay? In the end, I would say that I may not have been part of TV shows or social media. I may not have made probably billions of dollars. I may not be that visible. But when I see somebody using the designs that I have created, that satisfaction is ultimate. That's the silent satisfaction.